Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our first Tenacious trainings. This is going to be a series that Tracker is going to be taking part in moving forward, just helping you guys out with a couple of free trainings each month to make sure your team is staying up to date on all of your best practices around workflows, as well as any new features that we continuously add. I am Meredith Gilmore, and I am a client success manager with Tracker. And today we're basically going to be going over our recruitment workflow. In this training, we're going to be going over utilizing our long list for sourcing candidates, working the short list. So that's going to include submitting candidates to internally, as well as with our external clients, scheduling those interviews, sending out offers, placing those candidates on assignment, and then running over really quickly just those dashboards and user targets just to keep track of all the hard work that we're doing within Tracker. A lot of you may have already dived into Tracker and maybe you're just looking for a little bit of refresher on the workflow. And maybe some of you are a little bit newer to the Tracker team here and wanting to get to know the system right from the beginning. So I'll try to take it slow today and keep in mind there might be some areas within the system that may look a little bit different. As you know, your systems probably have been customized directly to your workflow, but we'll go over a very generalized workflow in today's training. If you do have any questions, please save those at the end. And hopefully if we have a little extra time, we will be able to open up the floor for any Q&A. If not, feel free to reach out to me or your direct client success manager or log a ticket in your support portal. And a member of the Tracker team will be happy to get those questions answered for you. But we are going to go ahead and get started. So I'm going to go ahead and dive right in. So coming into the system, you're going to come into your home page, but since we're just going over workflow today, we're going to dive right into a job. I've actually already created one before we started the training just to go ahead and kind of dive right into the long list and sourcing these candidates just to save a little bit of extra time. So here today, we're going to be working on a senior software developer role. Our contact is Maggie Walker over at ABC Technologies. As we can see from our executive summary here, we are currently in an open status of this job. We are working on a contract role, and it looks like we're going to have to go in and assign some maybe values for this job. So first things first, we have our job details here. This is where you're going to keep track of essentially all the basics when it comes to the role. You're able to quickly click into any of the contact records or company records as it relates to this job itself. We can do a quick view here, or we can go ahead and even dive into these green arrow buttons, which are actually going to take us directly into those records. We can assign any job ownership. And since I opened this role and had a specification that I got from the manager, Tracker's already pulled that right here into my job description. And I have an overall good idea of what role I'm going to be recruiting on today. Keep in mind in this job description area, this is going to be an externally facing job description. So you're always going to want to make sure that anything in this section here is nice and pretty. We're not including any information that maybe we wouldn't want a candidate or a client to see, especially if we're dealing with something that could be a little bit more confidential. The strategy and commentary area, this is where you're going to want to input any excess information, maybe some more detailed information about the location, the types of candidates this hiring manager might like to hire, or maybe some salary information. Additionally, we have some more basic information around the job itself, including any company reference numbers, maybe if we're using a VMS system with this as well, and we'd like to keep track of what the VMS number is, we can go ahead and add that here. We can also add in a reason for status, which can be used however your team typically uses it. So could be a reason why this is open, or we could use this at the end, maybe a reason why this closed, or maybe a reason why we lost the job. If you have your skills section built out, we can go ahead and start adding in any required skills here. And if we're working with multiple positions on this job, we are able to update this number of positions as it relates to the amount of candidates we would like to hire for the role. As you can see, since this was associated with a job ABC Technologies, it's automatically pulled over any information regarding that contact or the company and the location in which this job will be. And then we also have the link to our working folder. This is a bit newer of a feature. If you're not super familiar with it, I highly suggest you reach down here in your right-hand bottom corner and go ahead and open up a question with support and maybe get some more information on how we can start using this working folder. This is actually going to be for essentially just organizing some of those submittal processes with your clients. So instead of going through that old-fashioned email way where we send those resumes over and go back and forth in a long email chain about how to set up interviews, our working folder is a new feature that we've added where your clients will be given an online portal, and you can actually share your candidates to that online portal with a job profile for each candidate. Right there from the portal, the hiring manager is able to keep track of where candidates are in process, request interviews for any of those candidates, as well as submit any potential interview times. So just a neat and organized way that we can make sure to keep that streamlined process between us and our hiring managers to get those jobs filled quickly. We have some additional custom fields here that you might not have in your current system. This is just around job screening questions that may have been asked or filled out during the rec intake process. And then you're also going to have your job dates and values. So this is going to look a little bit different since we are working a contract job. We have start and end dates, and we have pay rates and bill rates. If we were working a direct hire or a permanent role, this would look a little bit different, and this would be broken up into a start date, an invoice start date, and then a basic salary. So it looks like today we're working on a 1-month contract. Hopefully we'll get some extensions there. And we're working with a pay rate of 65 and a bill rate of 105, giving us a target margin that's calculated for us of 38%. Next thing, we're always going to want to make sure that we're actively pulling those candidates in. Today's training is all about maximizing our efficiency within Tracker and efficiency with our recruiting strategies without making our jobs harder or creating more work from ourselves. So very first thing, before we even dive in and we start recruiting on this role, we're going to want to make sure to post this job. So Tracker, again, out of efficiency and making sure we're not repeating any steps, that same job description that was put into my job description tab here on the front page was automatically pulled into my job posting tab. If you ever pull this over and maybe you want to make a few edits here, it looks like maybe we have a spelling mistake. I can go ahead and hop right in, correct my mistakes, free type into this section, maybe switch up some of my fonts, to add any specific information that I would want to be included in this job posting. A couple of different things I can do from this tab. Not only can I go ahead and post to my job boards if you have our job boards plan. So instead of having to step out of Tracker and go into all of those different job boards, copy and paste your postings and re-input this information over and over again, I can actually go ahead and post this out to all of my job boards available, whether it be Career Builder, Dice, Monster, whatever contracts that your team has available. Tracker is here to get it all done in one fell swoop. Not only that, if you haven't already, I would definitely reach out and get some more information on our Jobs Plus plan. We actually just upgraded this plan a little bit to include a bit more features. So Jobs Plus is a way that Tracker can actually link our database directly with your personal website. We will build out a jobs posting page for you, and I can go ahead and post this job directly to my website right here just by going ahead and clicking over this button. Not only with Jobs Plus are these going to post to my website, but these are also going to be SEO compliant and optimized to make sure that they're showing up on Google first. And it's actually going to bring in more foot traffic to your website. So we're getting qualified candidates in there. Your name is getting out there. It's going to push them directly to your website instead of those third-party posting sites that you might see whenever you're posting regularly. So really great tool. There's a lot of cool analytics behind it, and a lot of cool tools that we can do as automated outreach to some of those applicants that are going to be coming in. We won't dive into that too much today, but I do highly encourage you inquire about that with your client success managers or your support team. So now that I have my job posted, again, I can post this all to my job boards easily. I'm not going to go through this whole process. It does take just a second, but I'm going to go ahead and get it all posted so I can start pulling those applicants in. And all your applicants are going to begin to funnel into this section here where you can easily review, and you can go ahead and pull them into the system and maybe even shortlist them. Looks like we do have a question that just popped up just about the cost of Jobs Plus. We have recently updated this. I believe there is a one-time setup fee of $500 and then a monthly fee of $250. It is a month-to-month job offering, or excuse me, product offering that is going to be separate from your regular licenses that you have with Tracker. It can be canceled at any time if you're not getting the value out of it, but I do highly suggest looking into it. It's a great product and a great way just to continue to amplify your usage within Tracker and really get the most out of the tool. So today we're going to go ahead and dive into our long list. So for many of you who might be newer to Tracker, the long list is essentially just going to be a search of candidates within your database or even with the job boards. So this is not to be confused with anything that is actually going to be connected with the job itself. Essentially, this is just a way that we're going to keep an active list of candidates that we're sourcing through as it relates to this job itself. So we're always going to want to search from within the long list instead of this all candidates section. The reason being is just that it's going to go ahead and it's going to give us the opportunity to really organize our search. And I'll tell you what I mean as we go through the process. So first things first, whenever we get into this long list, I have a couple of different things available. Tracker has a new feature that's going to go ahead and generate skills automatically for us. This is going to go ahead and take some of those skills that it pulls from that job description that we were given by that hiring manager and pull them right here into the semantic search. So this is just a quick way to save us some time. We can go in and we can take out anything that might not be super important for the search itself, but just a really great way, especially if we're working with any new recruiters on the team who aren't quite as familiar with maybe some of the technologies or skill sets that we're recruiting for. A quick and easy way to just go ahead and get them diving in and searching within the system. So I'm going to go ahead and narrow this down a little bit here. We just want to keep it really broad for today's purposes. A couple of additional things that we have here at the top. So not only do we have our basic semantic search, which I'm going to dive back into that, but we have our Boolean search. So if you really want to get down into maybe the nitty-gritty of a specific skill set and you're really good with making sure you remember all your commas and quotation marks and putting those in the right place, this is a great section for you to dive into. You can make your Boolean section really long if you have something specific you're going for, but this is going to be a great tool for some of those advanced recruiters to really just dive in and work with those Booleans as well. Semantic search is going to be a little bit more of a simpler way to work. It does have a similar functionality or a logic behind maybe like a Boolean. So this is going to be our all of these sections. So this would work similarly to an and statement. This would work a little bit like an or statement, and this would work as an and not statement. So essentially what this is going to do is I can go in, I can type in maybe a skill that I would like to work with. And not only this, but this is going to give me a couple of suggestions as I'm typing it in of some other things that I can pull in that could be relatable. So maybe I want to go ahead and use the whole phrase Java developer, and I want to search that as an entire phrase. You're going to go ahead and type out that entire phrase and press enter afterwards. Wherever you see these red X's is essentially what you're searching. So I'm just going to go ahead and type in Java. That shows that I'm going to type in, or I'm going to search that single word. And maybe I want to type in microservices. So just a couple of things that I can dive into there. I'm also able to go ahead and set any radius searches as well. So maybe if I'm looking for some candidates that are specifically maybe around in the San Diego area, I can do a radius search here. I'm also able to add in any maybe salary or rate information if I'm working within some pretty strict salary or rate restraints. Maybe if I'm looking for a resume that was very recently updated, I can go ahead and look at or pick some parameters for my resume last updated, just to make sure I'm getting brand new candidates that have been added to the system, pulled into my search. You can also search by work type here. So we can search by candidates that are open to contract or permanent jobs. If you actively have our job boards plan, you're able to go ahead and search some of those job boards right here from your long list. So again, huge thing. They're always trying to keep ourselves within Tracker. There was actually a survey done or a study done based on 2020 recruiting trends last year that essentially told us that about a third of a recruiter's time is spent just sourcing candidates. So that means that's just us looking through resumes. That's just us putting in those Boolean searches, hopping on those job boards. That does not even include times that we're on the phone with candidates, actively getting them pushed through a role and getting them put on placement. So as we say in the recruiting world, time is money. So Tracker is here to help you save time. And as a recruiter myself, back in my past life a little bit, I know how often I spent repeating the same searches that I would do in the database into each one of these job boards, having them open in all of those different tabs. So I highly suggest you look into getting any job boards connected here in Tracker, an additional way that you're just going to save your recruiters some extra time. We also have these advanced search options. So we're able to really dive in and get into the nitty-gritty of maybe some different things we want to search by within a candidate profile. We're also able to go into any of these specific job boards and include any criteria that our job board lets us search by as well. So you're not going to lose any functionality there. But today, just to kind of keep it simple, I'm going to go in, we're going to search for a Java developer who also has maybe some microservices experience. So I'm going to go ahead and run our search. We'll give it just a minute. It looks like we've already found 13 candidates here within Tracker. And I'm working from an admin account. So unfortunately, a lot of our job boards are not set up. But essentially what this would show is it would go ahead and let us know, okay, green check, this is going to say, hey, this was a successful search, and it's going to show you how many candidates were pulled into that search. I'm going to go ahead and fetch my long list. And now we have a list of candidates here within Tracker that we can begin to work through. And I'm actually going to go back and let's widen this up a little bit. Let's just search Java developer overall here. Give us just a little bit more to work with. So now we have 69 candidates. I'm just going to go ahead and fetch that long list again. Perfect. So now that I'm here in my long list, As you can see, it's got a little bit more functionality than that typical candidate search section is going to give us. First things first, we have our quick view. So what this is going to do is it's going to go ahead and quick view these candidates, pull up their resume, highlight any sections of their resume that actually meet the criteria that I've listed within my search. I can easily see a job history, any activity as it relates to this candidate, just to kind of see have we worked with them before, what has our recent communication been with them. I can also see any listings. So it looks like we've really worked heavily with this candidate, shortlisted him to a lot of roles, and even placed him about 5 times. We have our summary section. This is going to give us a brief overview of just kind of his contact information. We can go ahead and actually click to dial right here. So if you have your phones set up within Tracker, you're able to go ahead and give him a call just by clicking that number right here on your screen. I can also click on this LinkedIn button. It will take me straight to his LinkedIn profile. I can just check out some information there, see if maybe he has any recommendations on his profile. And I can also go ahead and toggle through this candidate and just switch from candidate to candidate back and forth really easily to make sure that I'm not having to go out of my list, re-click on these candidates. I'm able to quickly filter through and really source out which candidates I want to give a call. Additionally, if I want to go ahead and maybe reach out to this candidate, I can send them an email, maybe letting them know that I came across their profile and I would love to set up a time to speak with them. Or again, I can go ahead and use my click to dial and just go ahead and try to get him on the phone right here, right now. If I want to log any activities, maybe I want to give him a telephone call and maybe write out some notes. Go ahead and see, is he actively on the market? What types of roles is he into? Always remember that we do have our dictate button here. It works pretty well, especially if you're using a headset, but you can really just type into speak into the microphone, and it's going to go ahead and write out all your notes. That's for any of my lazy typers there, or people who are just kind of looking to save a little bit of extra time. We've also added activity templates to our system. So if you have any list of maybe screening questions that you like for all of your recruiters to review as they kind of source and qualify new candidates, we can create activity templates that'll pop them right here into our notes section. They'll be able to go in and maybe type out the answers to those questions in a more formatted view. I can also remind myself to give this guy a follow-up call. Maybe if I left him a voicemail and he didn't answer, maybe I want to remind myself to go ahead and follow up on this tomorrow. I can go ahead and select that. I'm going to go ahead and complete this call. And now I've just went through, talked to Anand, reminded myself to give him a call back tomorrow just to try to get him on the phone. And I'm back sourcing through my list pretty easily from here. If at any point I want to go ahead and move forward with the candidate right here from my quick view, I can go ahead and shortlist them. If I've qualified them, maybe they decided, hey, love to move forward with the opportunity, and I'm really interested in getting to hear more and maybe talking to your client, we can go ahead and shortlist them over, and that way we know we're going to start working them through the job process. Additional tools you might have available to you. We also have our ranking system here within Tracker. So this is actually going to rank all of our candidates by who has profiles within Tracker as it most relates to the search criteria that we have put forth in our search. Additionally, we have our color coding. So really the color coding can be used for whatever fits for your team. For me personally, being formerly a recruiter, I really like to use the color coding to keep track of where I am and going through my list. I know I spent a lot of time, especially coming back the next day on maybe a role that I was working with for a week straight, just a really tough one to find, trying to figure out where I was in my call list. So gray, as they all come in gray, I would just say maybe I use that as something to say that I haven't looked at any of these candidates. Maybe I haven't gotten a chance to review their profiles. So essentially untouched. Maybe I would move this to yellow if I've reviewed their profile, or I'm even trying to get in contact with them. I'm chasing them down. I think they have a great resume for the job, just haven't been able to get in touch with them to see if they're on the market or even interested in the role. Maybe green, I've gotten in contact with them. They look great. I'm about to shortlist them. I know I want to move them through the job. Or red, I've gotten in contact with them, or I've looked at their resume and they're just not going to be quite a fit. So as you go through any of your long list candidates, you can again just filter these out as you go through and actually speak to them. And maybe you come into the next day. Again, a big reason why we're always going to work from the long list is because this is going to be saved. So for example, maybe I jump around to something new. I come into the next day and I need to start where I left off. I can go right back into my job, go back to my long list. My search has been saved. I don't have to spend any time trying to figure out what were my search criteria yesterday. I can also go over to my filter section right here. Maybe I want to go ahead and get rid of my reds or my greens because I either know I'm moving forward or I'm not. Go ahead and click go, and I know exactly where I'm starting off my call list today. I also just got another question that came through, essentially just asking how to add that quick view when looking through the long list. It doesn't look like they currently have it added to their profile. So big thing here, always keep in mind all of these columns in any of your list views are totally customizable to you. So if you ever see anything up here that I'm talking about that maybe you don't see on your end, just toggle it over to this column section. Whenever you click into the drop down, all of these will appear and you'll be able to add any additional columns to your section to essentially display any data that you would like. So in that, if you're not seeing this little I button, just go into your columns and it's listed under quick view. All of them should be in alphabetical order. And also keep in mind that all of these columns are drag and droppable if you would like to switch up a little bit of the order that you have these in. I'm gonna go ahead and add these back. As you can quickly see, we also have additional filter buttons within the long list. So I can maybe search any new candidates that have come into my search. Maybe I only want to see anybody who came in through the job boards. Maybe anybody who I haven't had a chance to get contact on this job, or maybe I can hide any of the candidates I've already shortlisted them. You're also able to quickly search through the long list. So maybe if I want to add an additional skill, maybe PHP or something else like that, I can add that right here and it will search briefly into the long list. We also have our map feature here. So if you have your location services set up, maybe if you're looking at a specific location for a job, we're actually able to pull up our map. This red pin here is going to show us the location of the job that we are hiring for. All of these purple people around, those are going to be candidates that are actively in our long list. So this might come in handy for any jobs that may be actively working on site, especially if you're working in any areas that maybe have high traffic or large commute times. Maybe location within the city is going to be really important to their ability to arrive at work every day on time. So we're actually able to go through these lists. You can click on the candidate to see exactly which candidate it is. And for any reason, if we're trying to look through this side of the list, you can actually click on those candidates and they'll bounce up and down to show you where they're at located on the map. So again, just a quick and easy tool just to make sure that we're sourcing candidates who essentially are in a prime location for the job. We also have our quick add candidate feature here. If we have any candidates in the system that we know we want to add to the long list that just haven't quite come up in our search, we can go ahead and type in their names here and add from the drop down, quickly add them to our list. Included in our unlimited plan, in our job boards feature, we have watchdogs. So if you do have any job board accounts set up within Tracker, we're actually able to create watchdogs. So again, just another way that we're really going to continue to automate this recruiting process and really get ahead of competition. Watchdogs are essentially going to be saved searches that are set up on your job boards, so that, you know, if I leave for the day, I can go ahead and set up a watchdog with my same criteria on any job boards that I actively have licenses with. And any candidates that maybe update their resume overnight are automatically going to pull into my list. We can parse them as new candidates. I can auto match them right to my short list or into my long list, so I can go ahead and work them through the process the next day. I can also set up an auto engagement email. So this is really awesome. Even if they're coming in at, 2 a.m. in the morning, I can go ahead and have an email automatically go out to them, letting them know that their profile matches a couple of jobs I have open. And I'd love to go ahead and set up a phone call for the next day to essentially see if it's going to be something we move forward with. So Tracker is going to be working even when you aren't. And that's just an easy way that we can get ahead of competition. Again, old saying, time is money. We want to make sure that we're not wasting time trying to research these boards and waiting 2 days later after they have updated their resume. At that point, comp's probably already talked to them and we've lost that candidate. So if you have not looked into watchdogs at all, again, I highly encourage you reach down in this little blue box here and get in contact with somebody over at Tracker who can help you get set up there. So now that I have gone through my long list, a couple of things that I would like to go over. I can actually bulk select from the long list, and I can bulk email anybody. So maybe if I want to bulk email out everybody, letting them know that I'm going to be giving them a call this afternoon, maybe even asking them to, take my calendar link and sign up for a time that's going to work best for them. I can do that from here. I can actually go ahead and shortlist some people in bulk, maybe bulk set their statuses, and even set up sequences for these candidates. So another big feature, if you are not super familiar with it, sequencing is a tool within Tracker that is essentially drip campaigns or automated outreach. So I could actually go ahead and sign all of these candidates up for a sequence that essentially maybe is a series of emails, texts, and phone calls, trying to reach out, get them on the phone, get a response back so that we can try to see if we can get them submitted for the position. Again, just a way that Tracker is going to keep working the way, even when you're not, and just try to maximize that outreach so we can get as many qualified candidates in for the job as possible. So now that I've shortlisted a few candidates here, I'm going to go ahead and go into my shortlist. So again, for any of our new people here with Tracker, our shortlist is actually going to be the candidates that we are moving through the job process. So ideally, these are candidates that we've talked to, we know are qualified for the role. They've given us their consent to be submitted to the position. And now essentially, I just have to get them through the process. So in the shortlist, we have our beautiful card view. Your cards may look a little bit different. You might have less, you might have a couple of more. Some of these naming conventions might be personalized to the naming terminology that your team uses internally. That's okay. It all works pretty much the same. If you have any groupings that are missing that you would like to add, you can go over to your group section and pop those in here. The card view is essentially just going to be a very visual way that we can see where all of our candidates are within the hiring process. You do have your list view in which you can kind of see any candidates or add any specific columns that you would like to add here. But I personally am a big fan of the card view. I'm visual, I like pretty colors, so I like working from this view the most. So first things first, if your company has an internal submission process, we have to get these candidates over to our account manager so they can review them and see if we are actually going to submit them for the role. So first things first, we can do this in singly or in bulk. As you can see, whenever I highlight over a candidate, I have these drop-down buttons that will appear. This is essentially going to give me a long list of actions that I can do for this candidate. I can log activities if I want to reach out and give them a call, or maybe log a task or a note. I can also send an email to this candidate. Maybe I just got the formal job description. I want to send it over before we get going down the list of, interviews, offers, things like that. I can do it right here from our short list. I can go ahead and use my click to dial if I have my cloud call set up. I can open that candidate resume, even create an agency resume for this candidate right here from the shortlist. Send their resume over by clicking this button, creating interview activities, or assigning to another job. I can also, as you can see, this blue cog button appears. This is going to be their placement record. So as soon as a candidate is attached to a job at the shortlist level, a placement record will appear, essentially going to keep track of any activities or any specified details of that candidate as it relates to senior software developer under Maggie Walker at ABC Technologies. So again, I'm going to dive in. I want to go ahead and send all of these candidates over to, or maybe just my top 3 over to my account manager. I'm going to do this in bulk because I'm going to save myself a little bit of time here. So as you can see, when I hovered over and clicked over their pictures, this action button is going to appear. This allows me to, again, just bulk action some of these candidates. So I want to go ahead and send my candidate resumes. So I'm going to go right here to the Send Candidate Resumes button. Right now, it's going to automatically say it's going to send over to my contact, ABC Technologies, but we first want to send this internally. So I'm going to go ahead and send this over to Freddie first for review. Here I have my send method. We're just going to go over an email method today, but again, if you wanted to use that online portal or that working folder I was talking about in the beginning, this is where you would share those online. I have my list of my 3 candidates that I'm going to submit. It's letting me know that I do have an agency resume built out for these candidates. And then if I wanted to switch up the resume in which I am going to send over, I can click the drop down and easily select which resume I would like to use from their profile. So from here, I'll go ahead and click the preview button. And this is automatically going to use our internal submittal form. So it's going to pull in all of those resumes. My subject line is letting me know it's an internal submittal for senior software developer. I have all of my candidates, their job titles. If I have salary information in their profiles, it will highlight here a summary and synopsis of these candidates, as well as any actionable buttons right here around interview, hiring, or rejecting. As soon as I go ahead and send these over to Freddie, my candidates are going to move into my internal submission box, and I've just done multiple things. I've sent those candidate resumes over to Freddie. I've given myself credit in the system for 3 internal submissions. So as a recruiter, I'm making sure I get my KPIs in. And I've also moved those candidates over into the next bucket. So we're always going to want to action our candidates through the process rather than drag and dropping, especially in these beginning sections, because we're going to be keeping track of KPIs in these sections. So we want to action those so we remember to create activities that we're getting credit for. So Freddie's taking a look. He comes into the system. They all seem like really great candidates for the role. And, I'm a great recruiter, so he's just going to send them all over. So again, Freddie can do this singly or he can do it in bulk, but we're always looking to save time here at Tracker. So we're just going to do this in bulk. So again, we're going to click on those spaces. Freddie's going to come in from his end, select this action button, And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go in and we're going to send those candidate resumes, but this time we are going to send them over to Maggie Walker as a formal submittal for this role at ABC Technologies. Again, I've made sure I have agency resumes for all these candidates. I'm going to go ahead and press preview. And now I have a similar template that we are using. This is our resumes to client template. Again, the format is very similar. My subject line is not going to be internal submittal. It's just going to say a resume is attached. And then it's also going to have all of those resumes for those candidates, their summary and synopsis, and all of these actionable buttons. So this template can be customized in your system. So maybe if you want to switch up some formatting there, but really cool feature, especially around these action buttons. We know that a lot of our hiring managers work at a very fast pace, and sometimes it's hard to get them to respond to those emails or give us some feedback on our candidates. So right here from the email, using these action buttons, your hiring manager can reject the candidate, interview the candidate, or hopefully even request to hire the candidate right from their email without even having to skip a beat. I always like to remind myself to follow up on these by telephone or maybe some other tasks tomorrow. Because like I mentioned, those hiring managers are tough to run down. So just want to make sure that if I don't get email feedback today, I go ahead and give them a call tomorrow. I want to keep the process moving forward. So now we have moved all of our candidates into our resume submitted to client bucket. My clients received all of their resumes, a write-up on all of them. I have also given myself credit in the system for 3 client submittals. And I've also just created a follow-up activity to remind myself tomorrow to go ahead and give that hiring manager a phone call to get some feedback on these candidates. So I hope you're kind of seeing the trend here that a little bit of work goes a long way in Tracker. That's why we do it all in the system, because the system is going to do a lot of it for us. So next things next, we're ready to go ahead and set up those interviews. And maybe we just want to go with the first 2 candidates. So simply put, we're going to go ahead and highlight these pictures right here, and our action button appears, and it's time to go ahead and set up those interviews. So really great feature around this too. We can set our interviews up in bulk. So I'm going to go ahead and action, and I'm going to go down to my arrange interviews button. This is going to go ahead and pull up a list of candidates. Oh, he doesn't have an email. Let's use another one. There we go. So this is just going to pull up both of my candidates. I have my interviewer here. I can go in and add any additional contacts that might be on that interview, or if it's going to maybe be a panel interview, I can put in multiple attendees to this. I can select the interview type. So maybe it's going to be a phone interview for the first round, and my location is automatically going to pull in for the location on the job. If for any reason this is different, you can just delete it out. Maybe I'm just going to put in their phone since it's going to be on the telephone, not to confuse any of my candidates. We don't want them showing up on site if they're not supposed to be there. But just keep in mind that you will always have to have something in this location button or location section for you to be able to send. Tracker is not super picky about what you put in there, but it does require it to be filled out. So I have both my candidates. I can go ahead and select the dates in which they're going to interview on. So maybe we're going to interview on Friday, and I can just go ahead and select the time. So Anand, he's going to go in at 3:30, and I'm going to go ahead and check off that I want to send him a confirmation email of this. Again, just save myself a little bit of time. And the other Anand, he's just going to go in on Thursday, and we'll say he's interviewing at 1 o'clock. Again, I'm going to send him a confirmation email of this. And here I can go ahead and select my templates. So these are the templates that are going to be sending over to the contact and the candidate letting them know that we have confirmed those interviews as well as any specific details of those interviews so they can be prepared and ready to go. You can select from different templates that you've created in the system, and you can always go in and preview right here just to kind of get a good feel of what that looks like. As you can see, with any of these areas where we have brackets, it's going to autofill any of the information as it relates to this interview on this job. So it's going to be very customized without us having to go in and customize it ourselves. So here I have my options to add a calendar attachment. So again, we always want to make sure we're sending over calendar invites. We want these people to block it off on their calendar. We don't want anybody forgetting about these interviews. So I'm just going to go ahead and let it know that I would like to include an iCalendar attachment that they can download and pop on their Outlook or Gmail. And just to make it easy on my hiring manager, I'm going to go ahead and add in each of the resumes into that calendar invite. So if they're jumping on last minute, they're not having to dig through their emails and look for those resumes. They're just able to click right into that calendar invite and view those resumes from there. I'm going to go ahead and send this off. Give it just a moment. There we go. And we've moved our candidates over into the interview bucket. I have given myself credit for setting up 2 interviews in the system, so my KPIs are looking good. Both my candidates are prepped and ready to go for their interviews. I've sent them over confirmations, calendar invites, so they've blocked off their calendars. I've done that for my contact, Maggie over at ABC Technologies, and we are good to go. So I've done it all quick and easy. I can dive right into the next thing that I'm doing and move on with my day. So as we continue to move through the process, ideally we would love for us to, take a candidate from shortlisted all the way to offer in place today. So we're moving a little bit quicker than normal, but we're going to go ahead and pull these candidates into those offer stages. So first things first, I want to go ahead and maybe I just want to send one offer to my first candidate. So I'm just going to click my drop down here. Since I'm doing this as single action, I don't need to go in and, bulk log these activities. So actually, sorry, I jumped right through that. I want to make sure you're following me. I'm going to go into his placement record. I'm going to go to my actions here, and I'm going to go ahead and send this candidate an email. We have offer letters that we can go ahead and send over to the candidate. So you can either send an email or just an overall written up formal offer letter. I can go ahead and send this update over to Anand. He's going to get an email. And if I close it out, I've sent him over the offer and he's moved into my offer stages. He's taken some time maybe to look through everything. He wants to make sure the benefits and the pay is fair for the job that he's going to be doing. So we've given it a day. Now it's time to actually put him on place. He's formally accepted the offer and we want to go ahead and get him into a higher status here. As you've probably seen, as we move these candidates through, our job status is continuously updated throughout the process, just keeping track of where we are with the overall role. But I'm going to go back into this placement record. So now what I want to do is make sure that I update all his job dates and values. So I'm going to go down to his financials tab, and I want to make sure I add in the information that is going to be correct for this placement. So right now, again, just a brief 1-month contract. So our start and end dates sound good. Well, maybe actually we need to start this tomorrow. So we'll go ahead and start an end date. He's going to be working 9 to 5:30 typically, Monday through Friday. Date confirmed is essentially the date in which that offer was accepted or extended. And here's where I add in my pay rates. So maybe I'm going to go ahead and I'm paying him $65 and I'm billing the client $105. If he's going to be receiving overtime, we can add in those overtime rates here. And if we have any special company terms that we have listed in that company profile, we can peek in here and just remind ourselves of what those terms are so we can make sure that we're billing correctly. Next thing, I want to go ahead and add any taxes and burdens. So maybe I want to go ahead and add in that quick fee, whatever it may be. And this is going to auto calculate all of that information and give me a placement value. So before we leave this, we always want to make sure that we save this information. We need to save what we've updated here in our placement record. And we also want to go back and make sure we update our job with all of this new information that we actually finalized on. Because remember, those dates and fees that we put in the beginning when we opened that job could have changed a little bit as we were recruited for the role. Maybe Anand has negotiated his salary up a little bit. Maybe the start date got pushed back or the end date was extended, whatever it may be. We just want to make sure it all links up and matches in the system. So I don't need to retype this information anywhere, but before I leave this page, I'm going to go up to my action button here, and I'm going to scroll all the way down to this update job dates and values section. Here, it's just asking me if I'm sure. It's going to take the information I put into this placement record and say, hey, is this what you want to update the job with? I'm going to go ahead and say yes. And just like that, I'm saving. I can close it out. Oops, forgot to actually put my candidate in a working status, but that job job dates and values is now going to reflect what is active on this candidate's profile. So now I'm going to go ahead and move him into a working status. So we're going to go ahead and put him in placed. We'll save that. Let it update. Sorry guys, my internet's moving a bit slow today, so I'm going to just pop it over. There we go. Place them. And now Anand is ready to go. Our status has been updated. Our value was updated when we updated all those job dates and values. And Anand is over here in the placed column. Keep in mind, as you move these candidates through the process, you may want to keep track of any rejected reasons so that we can make sure to go back and keep an eye out for maybe why this Anand was rejected in the first place. So whenever we're rejecting candidates, we can always drag them into the rejected column. We have a pop-up that'll appear. We can select who they were rejected by. So maybe he was rejected by the client, and maybe he didn't have, maybe he had a pretty poor attitude. They didn't like that. They have great company culture, and they just want to make sure anybody joining their team is, going to be a good fit. So now I have him in the rejected column, and I'm able to keep track of, in any of these listings moving down the road, the reasons why it was rejected, so that we know that for any further interviews that we might submit Anand for. That is pretty much all we have for working the job itself. We have taken a candidate from sourcing all the way through the place status, and even rejected some of our candidates. We can also go back to our home screen and maybe check out our recruiter dashboards. And we can see that some of our KPIs have begun to fill out here. So here's where I can keep track of all that hard work that I just did when in my shortlist. I'll have any of my interviews that I have scheduled. I have my targets here. It lets me see how much I have achieved versus what I am still trying to go for the month. You can click on any of your active widgets and see exactly where these are coming from. So I can see that some of my resumes sent are my 3 resumes that I sent over for my job ABC Technologies that I just did. And this is just a great way that we can continue to keep track of all of our metrics to making sure we're staying on target for all of our goals for the weeks and the quarters. It looks like somebody had a question. What do you do in the shortlist when their assignment is ended? That is a good question. So once the candidate has ended their assignment, we want to make sure that we go back into this placement record. And we always want to make sure this financials tab is updated with the correct end date. So the candidate will automatically end on assignment if this end date has passed. If your end date has not passed, and maybe the contract ended early, or maybe you want to extend it out and then end it later, we can go ahead and select that to the correct date, and we will just move this status to either terminated, or maybe they just completed their assignment. Once they've done that, we have them mark as completed as assignment. This job will completely go in a closed state. So there's nothing more that you'll have to do with that. That's pretty much anything we have today. I have just a couple more minutes. If anybody has any questions they want to type into the chat box, I'm happy to live answer those. But again, if you do have any additional questions, feel free to reach out to your client success manager. Again, you also have that blue chat bubble at the bottom of your screen. And also, if you'd like to take some time, my contact information is live on this screen as well. Feel free to reach out, send me an email. I am happy to get you looped on any plan upgrades if there's some features that you're not actively able to access in your system that we spoke about today. Or if you would just had some additional questions that come at you later as you dive into the system. Other than that, thank you all so much for attending. And we will send out a video recording of this meeting tomorrow, so keep an eye on your emails. You'll also be able to access any of these trainings or webinars on our website at any time. Other than that, enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you next week.